Hello and welcome to the new tutorial. In this tutorial we will create several different animations you are watching right now in Blender and After Effects using several different methods. Also we will work more with volumetrics, animation, transition, glitchy effects and similar. The tutorial is also intended for beginners because we will go through all the steps. I also want to make an animation for YouTube channel, so I decided to try to combine different aspect ratios together. So let's start with Blender. You can download Blender for free at blender.org. First, I will introduce you to Blender a bit, after that we will start with this scene. This part is intended for Blender beginners. If you have experience, you can skip this part. Since Blender is a large and complex program, I will try to show you only the basic in about 10 minutes before we start working on the scene. When you open Blender for the first time, we see a lot of options. The good news is that you don't need to know most of them to create a scene. We will spend most of our time on the Layout tab, and we will also use shading for creating materials, UV editor for projecting materials on 3D objects, and finally a bit of compositing tab. All these tabs above are actually made up of these tools here. For example, layout consists of 3D viewport and timeline because we will use them a lot, so they are here by default when we open Blender. We can create a workspace according to our wishes or needs. For example, if we separate this window, we can add UV editor or shader editor or another 3D viewport here. In the 3D viewport we have three objects by default: camera, object and point lamp as light source. To create a render we must have at least one camera in the scene. To switch to camera view we can go to View, Cameras, Active Camera. But all these options have shortcut keys. Searching for this option for this menu is waste of time, so if you use Blender you have to learn some shortcuts. We will cover the most common shortcuts in this tutorial, and with time later you can learn shortcuts for advanced options as well. For example, to switch to camera view, the shortcut is numpad 0. When we have a selected camera, in the Properties tab we can find options for this camera. For example, focal length, which is actually zoom, depth of field and others. Each object in the scene can be deleted by delete key or X, and a new one can be created with Shift A or by going to Add menu. We will mostly use the options under Mesh. There we have basic geometry shapes from which we can model anything we want in the edit mode. Once we have the camera and object, we can make the first render. Shortcut for render is F12, or you can go to render image. We now see our object because we have a light source, which is this point lamp. If we remove the point lamp and press F12, we still see something, and the reason is because in the World Properties tab we have a dark gray color but not completely black, which means that our world or environment emits some light. If we switch to black we won't see anything. Lighting in Blender can be from three different types of source. The first is world or environment. There, in addition to color, we can also use an external file called HDRI. We can find many of them on internet for free, and we can also use procedural sky texture which comes with Blender. We create the second group of light with Shift A. There we have point, sun, spot and area. Each of these sources emit light differently. We can also turn any object into a light source if we create an emission material for this object in Shading tab. In Blender we have two render engines. The first is Eevee and the second is Cycles. Eevee is less realistic but is much faster than Cycles. Eevee can be very realistic, similar to Cycles, but you need to know how to set some settings manually, while Cycles is realistic by default because it's a physical based path tracer render engine. Speed depends on the computer power and scene optimization. In the Properties tab we have different options. One that we will use often is the Modifier tab. There we have a large number of modifiers that speed up the modeling process. For example, the array modifier enables us to quick and easily duplicate objects. With the mirror modifier we can easily mirror everything we do on one side to another side. With the Boolean modifier we can cut one object with another. There are many other modifiers. These are just a few that we use most often. The tools on the left allows us to quickly transform the object. For example, we will often use the Move, Rotate and Scale tool, but we usually use them with shortcuts G for Grab, R for Rotate and S for Scale. Most often combine it with X, Y or Z for X, Y or Z axis. For example, if we press S for Scale, then X for X axis, we can scale the object only along the X axis, or RY to rotate only on the Y axis, or GZ to move along the Z axis only. To edit an object we need to go to edit mode. The shortcut for this is tab. There we have three types of selection: vertex, edge and face selection. We can jump between them with 1, 2 or 3 on keyboard. Now we can grab vertex, edge and face and scale, rotate or grab with S, R or G. There are a large number of options that we use in edit mode. Some that we use often is Ctrl R to add loop cut, E to extrude and Ctrl B to bevel. Shortcuts that we use often to navigate through the scene is numpad 1 for the front orthographic view, numpad 3 for the right, numpad 9 for the left, and numpad 7 for the top. You can get the same by clicking on this gizmo. By pressing the N key we open additional tabs. You can find all this in Properties tab and much more, but this is shortcut for this we use often. The first three tabs come with Blender and the rest is the add-ons that I personally install. We will mostly use the Transform tab where we can see location, rotation, scale and dimension. There we can see the dimensions of our selected object. Now when we learn basic of Blender we can start creating our scene. So I will open Blender. And first thing I will do here, I will save this file. So I will go with File, Save, and you can choose folder on your computer where you want to save your file. I will save this here and I will call this cabin tutorial. Next I will delete this cube so we can create a new one with Shift A and Cube, or you can go to Add, Mesh and Cube. And this cube will be base of our cabin. So I will press N and I will type dimensions here: 8 meters on X axis, 6 meters on Y axis and 2.7 meters on Z axis. Now I will press numpad 1 to go to front orthographic view. And I will bring this at the beginning of this X-axis, so we can just grab this and move here, or if you want to be precise we can just type here half of this value because the origin of this object is in the middle. So I will type here 1.35 and I will go with Shift A and I will go with plane and scale. Press S to scale this. And this will be our ground. Every time we change scale in object mode, we need back scale to 1 because we can have problem later with modifier and textures. So to do this, we need go with Ctrl A and apply scale, and you can see that scale is now 1 and all modifier and textures and unwrap will work correctly later. So I will do same with this object here. So I will go for now with object, apply scale. But if we do changes in edit mode, for example, if we move this up, we don't need apply scale because scale is already 1. So I will go with Ctrl Z to undo this step. I will now select camera and I will set here 90 degrees on X-axis and 0 on Z-axis to line up camera, and we can here separate these windows. So just click here and hold your mouse and move this on right. And now we can press N to remove this tab here, and we can press also numpad 0 to go to camera view, or we can go to with view, camera and active camera. Now I will position this camera in the middle of this object here, so I will go with numpad 7 and we can move this in the middle of this object here. And we can bring this down on the axis also, but you can also grab this with left mouse and move this down. And I will go with about 1.2 value here. Now we can set a resolution, and for now I will go with this Instagram or mobile resolution, but later we can try something more cinematic and more wide resolution. So I will go with to output properties tab and I will set here 1500 by 1500. And if you now press F12 for first render, we get this, and very fast you can see only 37 milliseconds. And the reason for this is because we are now in Eevee render mode, which is less realistic but much faster. So I will now switch to cycles here. Now I can change here slot, so we can later compare this result. So I will go to slot 2 and I will press again F12. And you can see that this will take about 11 minutes in cycles. This is so slow because we have too much samples here. And samples determine how clean our image will be, and this value is too big. So I will bring for now this about 30 samples and also in viewport display to 30. And later when we are happy with our scene, we can bring this to maybe 200 or 300, but for now I will keep this to 30 and we can make another test now. And you can see that this takes about 10 seconds. But we can speed up this a lot because this is very simple scene for now. So I will go with slot 3 and I will set here to GPU. And if you have this optics denoiser, you can set this to optics, and I will bring this noise threshold to 0.2. So we can now make another test. And you can see that this now takes only 1 second and before was take 10 seconds. So we speed this scene a lot with just 2 settings. So this depends on your system. If you have GPU, always go with GPU and always go with optics denoiser. Low samples value when you make test renders, and later when you are done and happy with your result, you can increase this for final render. And also resolution is important for render speed. So if we bring this to 200, this value will be double, 3000 by 3000, and if we make another render, we can see last time is 1 second. Now this will be this will be 8 seconds now, but we have double resolution. And if we go with this value to 50, so 750 by 750, if we make another render, we can see that this take only 77 milliseconds. But I will back this to 100, so this resolution here. Before we start modeling cabin, my recommendation is to search for some reference images, and I search on Pinterest and I find some reference images here, and I will share these links with you so you can download the same reference images that I download. And you can, for example, just open this link and right click and copy image address. And you can just right click and save this image on your desktop. You can do the same with all these images here. We can import these images in Blender, but my recommendation is to download this simple program called PureRef. So you can go to Google and search for PureRef, and you can download and install this program for free. This is a very simple program. You can move this with right click, and you just need import your reference images here. So you can just select all these images, and you can just bring these images here. Okay, and now when we back to Blender, we can always click on this program and we can easily scale this if we want more space, and you can zoom easy to our reference images. So with right click we can move this where we want. We can change dimensions of this, and we can always work in Blender, and we can just click here and zoom to details we want. In next part we can start working on cabin details. First I will close this window here, so just right click here and join areas and click on left. I will try create this roof for start, so we can select this object, and if we press numpad/key, we can isolate only this object, and we can work only with this object here. And if I press again numpad/key, I can back to our scene. Or we can go with view, local view, and toggle local view. I always use this option because it's much simple. For example, if we have, this is simple scene, but if we have a lot of objects here, and it's very hard to work with this object, we need navigate through all these objects, and we always stick in with our camera to one of these objects, but we can just press numpad/key and we can work only with this object, and later we can back to our scene. Now we can go to PureRef and look for our reference images, and I will choose this one for roof. So we can go to edit mode, and if you go with Ctrl R and move your mouse, you can choose loop cut on X or Y axis, and I will add one loop cut here. And now I will select this edge select tool and I will just bring this up. And now we have roof shape here, and I will go with face selection and I will select these two faces, and I will go with Shift D to duplicate this face, because I want to separate this face for rest of this cabin. So when I duplicate this face, I can press P and separate this by selection. And now you can see that we have two objects, one is cube and another is cube 1. If you want, you can just double click here and you can call this roof. And you can see in this reference image that this roof is bigger than the rest of this house, so we can just select this here and press S to scale. And I will bring this down to position. And you can also see that the origin of this is almost at the same point as this house, because when we duplicate this object here, they take same origin from before. I want to set origin closer to geometry, so I will select this object and I will go to object, set origin to geometry. Now we can go to edit mode, and if we press A in edit mode, we select everything of this object here. And we can now extrude this to add thickness. So if I press E to extrude and move this up, we add thickness. We extrude this face, but on global Z axis here. And I want to extrude this along normals. And if I select this face and go here to normals, you can see direction of this normal. We can back here to global and press A to select all, and we can extrude this along normals if we press Alt E. And instead of extrude face, we can choose extrude face along normals. And now we extrude this along normal. I will not extrude this one more time to get this piece of roof here, so I will go with Alt T, extrude along normals. And now we can to expand, because we want to select this part here. We can go manually one by one, holding Control. But if we have all this already selected, as before, we can also press Control and numpad plus, Control and numpad plus to expand selection, and now we select all this, and now with hold Control and just deselect this piece, we have select only this part we need. You can also hold Control and or Shift and just select this line here. And now I will go again with Alt T to extrude this along normals again. And we now make this part of roof here. And now I want to make this tiny detail here, so we can go to Edge Select and we can select this line here with Shift And we can go with Ctrl B to bevel this. And now I want select only this face, this and this one, and we can go with E to extrude and Z for Z axis. And now I want to select this 4 faces and also this one. And I will now go with Ctrl B to bevel this. And with scrolling mouse you can add loop cut, more loop cuts here, and I will go maybe with 2 loop cuts. And we can see that inside here we have empty space, and I like this detail, so we can create this easily. So we can go to edit mode and we can go with Ctrl R and add 1 loop cut here and move this all to about here. And I also want to create 1 loop cut here and on the right side. So we can now select this face selection and we can select these 2 faces and we can extrude this on Z axis. Just be sure that you don't go over this roof, so to be sure you can go to numpad 1 and you can select this X-ray mode. Now you can see where is this line, so I will go to about here and I will now turn off this X-ray mode and we can see how this looks. You can note that it's a little hard to see these edges here. That's because we don't have bevel. We will later create bevel with. This is just for example. If we go with select these 2 faces and go with Ctrl B, you can now see this edge clearly. But because we will not add bevel for now, there is one option here. You can go to. You can click here and you can go to viewport and turn on this cavity. So now we have this nice bevel and we can clearly see these lines. I will try create this 3 piece of wood here, so I will go with numpad 1 to front orthographic view. And I will set origin here, and now I will go with Shift A and create cube and press S to scale this down, and now R Y to rotate this on Y axis, and I will try match this angle here. Scale little and G for grab, so we can move this here and try rotate this. You don't need to be so perfect because anything in the real world is not perfect, so just try match this a little. And now I will move this on Y axis to about here, and I will press SY to scale this also on Y axis. Now if we move, we can duplicate this with Shift D and we can move this on X axis, then little on Z axis and try line up. And this is not bad solution, but we have better solution here. You can just switch to normal orientation and now you can go with Shift D to duplicate this object and you can just move this along this X axis, normal X axis. And we can put one here. And we can also duplicate this one more time and Shift D, and we can move one here. And now we can select these three objects, and we can go with numpad 1, and with Shift D we can move, I will first back to global Z axis, and we can move this on right side, and now R and Y to rotate this on Y axis. And I will just place this to position here. Let's now create this porch here, or this one look nice. So we now have two separate objects, so we need to select this one here, and I will go with Ctrl R, and I will add one loop cut here. And you can see that this loop cut is go between this part up and this part down, but we want straight line here, so we need press S, Z and 0 to line up, to scale this on 0 by Z axis. And now we can bring this down. And we can select these two faces, and we can go with E to extrude and Y for Y axis. And let's create this tiny part here. So Ctrl R to add loop cut about here and bring this little up. And now we can select this part here. So I want to bring this more up, so I will back to edge select, and with Hold Alt we can select all this line. And now I will bring this little up, and now I will select this part here with holding Shift, and I will go with Alt E to extrude along normals. And extrude this, move your mouse and extrude this little out. Let's now add this part here. So select this object and go with Ctrl R, and again S, Z, 0 to scale this on Z axis by 0, and move this about here. And I will go with Ctrl B to bevel this a little. I will go with Shift D to duplicate this object, and I will scale this on X axis a little to get this part here. And now I will go with I will separate this object here, so I will go with P and selection. And now we have separate this object from this one, so I will select this object and set origin to geometry. I will go to edit mode and press A on keyboard to select all, and now we can extrude this on Y axis. You can see this angle here, so I will bring this little down. Okay, and let's create this 4 piece of wood here, these columns here. So we can go with Shift A and with cube, but what I usually do, I like to select this, for example this face here, and I can go with Shift D to duplicate this face. You can see that this is now separate face. And I can go with SX to scale this on X-axis and scale this on Y-axis. And scale this more, and now I can go with E for extrude and Z for Z-axis. And with pressing L we can select these loose parts here. So we don't need click one by one, we can just put mouse over this part and we can press L. If we press L here we select all this, but if we put mouse on this part and press L we can select this loose part. And I will now scale this down and scale this on the axis. So SZ and bring this to about here. And now I can go with Shift D to duplicate this object and move this on X-axis. But if you want to repeat this last process, we can go with Shift R and repeat. This will repeat this last process 2 times. Again with Shift D and move this to about here. And now Shift R 2 times. And to create this piece of wood here, I can go to edit mode and I can select one of these pieces with L. So I will select all this and I will scale this little on Y-axis. You can see here on reference image. And now I will select one of these, Shift D and move this on X-axis here, and now we can press R, Y and 90 to rotate this on Y-axis by 90 degrees. And now we can select this face here and we can just move this here, and we can move this little out and also this face here. And I will now press L over this part and move here to position. And let's move this little on Y-axis. So let's move this and let's scale this little on Y-axis also. And SX to scale little more on X-axis. Now we can get this edge here easily. We can just go to edit mode, select this edge select and Ctrl B to bevel this, and also this side here. Let's scale this part here now. So we can go to edit mode and we can grab this face here with face selection. Shift D, now this is separate object, scale this on the axis, scale more, and we can bring this here, and now E to extrude and Y for Y axis. Okay, and we can press L over this part and we can scale this little more on X-axis and on Z-axis. And now with numpad 1 I will go with Shift D and move on X-axis to here. We can turn on this X-ray mode to see better, and again Shift D X to about here and Shift D X again. and next is this part here, and I think we need to bring this piece down. So I will go to edit mode and I will select all this loose part with L. We need to make more space for this part here, so I will go with I will just bring this down. And with this part here we can select all these down faces. If we go to X-ray mode, and with this edge select we can select all these edges here, and we can bring this up. Okay, and now I will duplicate this face here, because this face have angle I need. You can see that this is rotated also as this part here, and I will go with Shift D to duplicate this object and scale this on X-axis and move this about here. Scale this on X-axis and extrude on Z-axis. And I will select this with L, select this loose part, and SX to scale this more. And let's extrude this. We need change now orientation. We can extrude this, but on global axis, but you can see what we get. So I will go with normal orientation, and we can now move this Z-axis here and back again to global. And I will just bring this little down to about here. And let's go with Shift D and X for X-axis and duplicate this 4 times. No, we can duplicate this 5 times here. Shift D X, Shift D X again, and now we have 7 of these pieces, like on this reference image here. And now I will just select all these loose parts here, and I will bring this little up. Now I want to make this little piece of wood here, and I will go now with a new object. So let's put origin here and go with Shift A, cube, and scale this all down. And I will now scale this on Z axis and scale on X axis. Scale on Y a little and on Z. Okay, and now we need apply scale. Every time we make change scale in object mode, we need apply scale. And I will move this here. And now I want to rotate this on Y axis by 45 degrees. So I will press R for rotate, Y for Y axis, and 45. But I want to rotate this in opposite direction, so I will go with Ctrl Z and R for rotate Y for Y axis and minus 45. And now I will change this to normal orientation, and we can now move this on Z axis here. And now we can duplicate this 2 times. So no, first back to global orientation and Shift D to duplicate this and X for X axis. And Shift D again and X for X axis. And now we can duplicate these three objects and with Shift D move this on X axis. And if we set this to individual origins here, we can rotate this. Press R and Y and rotate this on Y axis. And we can now move this here. And just be sure to back this to bounding box center so we don't have problems later. Now we can create doors and windows, and I will go with numpad 1. But before we continue, I will just go here to cavity option and I will change this from screen to world or both, so we can see these shadows and lines here now. Door width is about 1 meter, so I will go with cube and this will be just for measure. I will set here 1. And now I will select this object, go to edit mode, edge select, and I will go with Ctrl B to bevel this. And now we can delete this cube. And next I will go with Ctrl R to add one loop cut here. And with face select, so I will go to reference image and I want to create this type of door, this bar door. So E to extrude, and now we can go with I to insert. And I will grab this edge here and I will bring this down. And now E to extrude again. And I again. And E and Y axis for move this on Y axis. And I will just grab these two edge and I will bring this down. Now to create this board here, I can go with Ctrl R, but I don't want to create loop cut through all this cabin here. I want to create only on this door here, so I will separate this door. So face select, select this door and P by selection. And now I will go with numpad/key to isolate only this object. And you can see where is our origin, so I will go to object, set origin to geometry. And I will select this with A and I will extrude this on Y axis. Now I can work only on this door, so I will go with Ctrl R and Ctrl B to bevel this. And to create these two boards here, I will go with numpad 1 and we can go with key for knife. So if you press key, we turn this knife tool, and now I will just cut from here to about here, and now click and press enter. and another cut here, enter and key to stick to this edge, and enter here and another here. And we can now select these two face, and we can go with E to extrude and Y for Y axis. And I will extrude this one little more, so E and Y. And I will bevel these edges here to be more visible, so just select all these edges and go with Ctrl B. I will go with only one loop cut, so I don't want too much geometry here, because it's far away from camera and we don't need too much geometry. And now we can, with numpad/key, back to our scene. We can now create windows, and I will go with numpad 1 to edit mode, and with this edge select we can add one loop cut here. But I have problem, I cannot add the loop cut on this bottom part. Mostly reason for this is because we have double vertices, and I can try merge vertices by distance, so I will go with A to select all and F3 for search, and I will search here merge by distance. And you can see we delete one double vertices, and now I can try with Ctrl R, and we can create loop cut now. But if this don't help you can always go with key for knife and hold Z for Z axis, and you can create this edge manually. But I will delete this now and go with Ctrl R, because this create loop cut in the middle. Now I will select these two edges, and I will go with Ctrl B and make space for my windows to about here, and Ctrl R to add loop cut about here, and we can now start creating windows. This is my reference for window, and I will go again with E for extrude and Y for Y axis and I for insert, E and Y again, insert this again with I, E and Y for Y axis, and one more time. Okay, and now I will press P as same as a door to select this, to separate this object. So P by selection, and now we have only this window here. So object set origin to geometry, and now we can create this part inside. So I will go with to edit mode and add Ctrl R, Ctrl B to bevel this, and I will create one loop cut in the middle and one on both sides. So Ctrl R here, Ctrl R here, and one here. And now I will extrude this part in the middle, EY, and let's insert this again to create more details, and extrude this again a little. Now I will select these 8 faces, and I will go with I. If you press double I, so I, we can insert individual faces. And now I will go with E to extrude, Y for Y axis, repeat this again, I, and insert this and extrude on Y axis. And now I will delete these faces. I think this part here is too big, so we can go to edit mode and X-ray mode, and I can select this part in the middle and SZ and scale on Z axis. And with Control plus I can expand selection, and I can scale this on X axis also. And we can create seams here if we go to edit mode and grab these 4 edges. And now I will go with Ctrl B to bevel this. And if I scroll mouse up, I can add another loop cut here. And with Ctrl minus we can subtract selection. So if we go with Ctrl plus, we expand selection, and Ctrl minus is opposite. And now I have selected only this edge in the middle, and I can press G for grab and Y for Y axis, and I can now move this on Y axis. Okay, but this is too big seams, so I will go with Ctrl Z and I will make this smaller. Ctrl minus on numpad, or if this don't work for you, you can just manually select this with holding shift and click. And now G for grab and Y for Y axis. Let's create this part here quickly. So I will set origin about here, Shift A, cube, and scale this down. And scale this on X axis also. And scale on Y axis. And now I will select this part down, and I will press I to insert. And extrude this on Z axis. And now I will select these 2 edges by holding shift. And if I go with Ctrl B, you can see that I get bevel, but this don't look proportional. That's because we didn't apply scale here. So Ctrl A, apply scale, and now bevel work correctly. Scroll mouse button to add few loop cuts, and let's move this in, and we can grab this first edge, and if you hold Ctrl, Blender will try find shortest path from first one to last. And now we can click here. So you can see that this is shortest path to this edge. So we go with Ctrl Z, and I will first hold Ctrl and click here, and now we can click here again. So here, and now we select this edge and go with Ctrl B to bevel this. And we can also bevel these edges here. So Ctrl B and add just few loop cuts. Now you can see that this is 3 different objects, and I want to join all this window into one object. So I can select this one and this, and I will go with Ctrl J and to join this. So now this is one object, and I also want to separate this window frame. So I will go to edit mode And I will select this part here, these 4 faces, and if I go with Control numpad plus, I can expand selection. Okay, and now I select all this window frame and I can press P to separate by selection. And now this is separate object, and I can select this object and this one with holding shift, and I can go with Ctrl J to join this object, and you can see that we now join all these window objects. And I will now go with object set origin to geometry and select this cabin and go to edit mode. Delete this, select this face here and press delete to delete this. And I can now duplicate this object with Shift D and hold X to move this on X axis. Let's now create this little window here. So I will select this object and numpad 1, go to edit mode and edge select, and you can see if we grab this edge and go with Ctrl B, we have little problem here. So I will add another loop cut, one here and on right side also. And we need loop cut on X axis, so Ctrl R. And if I press now SZ0 to scale this on Z axis, we get this problem here. So I will go with Ctrl R. Sometimes it's a little hard to create this on X-axis because we have only this small area here, but you just need to be precise and with Ctrl R and try put your mouse here. And now we create this loop cut, and now I will select only these 2 faces, these 2 edges, and I will go with SZ0 to scale only these 2 edges. And another one here, and we can make space for our window. Now I will repeat process from this window, so select these 2 faces, E for extrude and Y for Y axis, I to insert this, again E for extrude, Y for Y axis, insert again and repeat this process. And let's press P for separate by selection, set origin to geometry, and just add one loop cut in the middle we already have, and one here. Select these 4 faces, I twice to insert this on individual origins, and E for extrude and Y for Y axis, and delete this face. And we can separate this part here. So if I select these 4 faces here and go with Ctrl numpad plus, I can expand selection one more time, P selection, and I can now bevel all this. So if I press A to select all, I can also go with Ctrl B to add one loop cut here. To add one bevel here. Okay. And if you want, you can go with Ctrl R here and G, Y to add these seams. I forget to join this window frame and this part here. So let's set origin to geometry and select this part here and Ctrl J. And now we have separate all the three windows. But I want to also join this door frame with this door. So I will go to edit mode and select all these faces with holding Ctrl or Shift and go with Ctrl plus to expand. Selection, P and separate by selection, and let's now select these two objects and Ctrl J to join this object and set origin to geometry. And we can try create these window shutters, and you can see that this is similar like door. So I can try duplicate this door and use this as shutters. So I will go with Shift D and move this on X axis, then move this on Y axis also and scale this down. And I will try fix this part down, so we can go to edit mode, face select, and we can grab these two face and bring this up. And I want to rotate this window a little, so if we go with rotate Z, we rotate this from the middle of this origin. But if we go to options and click here to origins, transform from origin, we can move this origin here. And let's turn off this option now, and now we can, if we press rotate Z, we rotate this from this origin here. And I will rotate this just a little. And let's now duplicate this with Shift D and move this on X axis to about here. And that's it for this part. I think in next part we will create lighting and try first render. In this part we will create lighting, but just to know that later when we add volumetrics to our scene, we will change lighting a little, and that's because volumetric affect a lot to our lighting, and I don't want to create volumetrics now because this will slow down our render and we will not be able to see clearly all these details. I will press F12 to make first render so we can later compare before and after. And I will now change to slot 2, so next time when I press F12 this will render in slot 2 so we can compare slot 1 and slot 2. If you close this window you can open this with F11. So F12 is for render and F11 open this image editor. Now I will split this window here. So when you see this X icon you can just move this on left, and on left side I will press numpad 0 to go to camera view, and I will press N to remove this tab here, and I will go here to render preview. And just be sure that you are in cycles render mode. I want to create night atmosphere, so I think I will keep this light because I like these details here, and this can be something like street lamp. So for now I will go to World Properties tab, and I will just bring this color to more dark to create more night atmosphere and more contrast. And I will add a little bluish color here. Next I want to see more details here, and I want to create also shadows here. So I will go with area lamp, and here in light properties tab I will increase this value to 1000, and I will add bluish color here. I don't want too much light in front because this creates very flat look, so I will bring this on side, and I will rotate this on y-axis, so RY. And if we move this on y-axis, you can see clearly these shadows. How sharp this shadow is depends how big is this light. So if we scale this up, we get soft shadows, and if we scale this all down, we get these hard shadows here. So I want hard shadows, but not as this, so let's scale this a little with S, and I will bring this about here. So you can see when we move this on y-axis how this affects on this part especially, so I like this detail here. I think I will keep this for now. Bluish color always go nice with reddish or orange color, so I will create light inside, and I will go with point lamp. Okay, we are now inside this house, and I will add here orange color, and I will bring this value to maybe 300, and with Shift D I will duplicate this light again. I want to turn off light from this area, from this window here. So I think easiest way for this is to create wall here. So I will go to edit mode, and I will grab these faces here, or you can grab this edge here. With holding Control we select shortest path from one edge to last one. So if I press E for extrude and Y for y-axis, we create a wall here, and I will bring all to end, and you can see that our light disappear now. And we can now press F12, and we can compare before and after. So if you press J key on keyboard, you can switch between these slots, so J. And let's now make one test with samples. So this is 30 samples, and I will try now with maybe 500 samples. And press F12. So you can see that this is still too fast, even if we bring these samples to 500, and that's because this scene is very simple and we don't have trees here, volumetric textures and a lot of details, but later this difference will in time, render time will be much bigger. So now this is 14 seconds, which is not too much, and we can now compare difference between render quality. So you can see with 30 samples, and this is with 500. We can see more details here. And render time is important when you make animation. It's not so important when you make just one still image. For example, for Instagram you can wait 10 or 20 minutes, but if you have maybe 200 frames by 5 minutes, and that's 16 hours, so you need to be careful when you have plan to make animation. Now we have simple but better lighting, and we can continue working on details and later textures.